Welcome, everyone. My name is Emma, and I am your alternative careers coach for today. I am here with Lauren Rosenthal. She has a really neat career for you, so I'm excited to share it. It is a number of different titles, but primarily we're going to talk about data analyst. And so she's an account exec and data analyst. Technically, she is a learning guide, but those are the main things underneath her role and what she was initially hired for. I'm really excited to dive deep into how Lauren found this role, what inspired her to take this leap, what this role, a day in the life of what it entails, and how you, as you're listening, can also transition into this awesome new career. So thank you, Lauren, for being here. I'm so excited to talk about data analytics and what exactly is that. So I think let's first start with what is that role, just so people can understand what we're talking about.
Totally. So data analytics is really about using data to kind of derive insights and help businesses make better decisions based on the data that's available. So that kind of looks like, data cleaning, data wrangling, kind of data preparation, and then the actual analysis of that data. So, looking for certain performance indicators, and then kind of providing those insights to whomever your stakeholders are to kind of help them make those better business decisions.
Got you. So what if I'm not techie and this still sounds cool? How much coding? What exactly does that mean?
Totally. So I typically say, like, I'm not a very techie person. When I first started out kind of thinking about this role about a year ago, I really focused on three main things. And so that was really Excel, SQL, and then some kind of data visualization tool. So, I think a lot of people have like the basics of Excel down, especially now. And, everybody's using Google Sheets and Excel. So that's kind of an easier one. And then SQL is essentially the database coding language. So that's one of the main things that I recommend using. And then data visualization tools. So something like Tableau or Power BI, those are two really common data visualization tools that kind of can help you get started. So, I took courses in all
I was
three of
about to
those.
say, I'm like, how do we learn these
Yep.
skills?
Yep, totally. So I took a couple of certification courses. I did Google's data analytics certificate, another certificate program, and then I took a bunch of courses at Maven Analytics, which is now where I now work. So that was a big part of my own journey. But yeah, there's plenty of courses on Udemy. I often recommend, if you're not sure, if you don't know that you're going to like this, buy a $10 course on Udemy. That was my first step. I bought a $10 SQL, boot camp course, and I took that, and it was everything that I like wanted to do. And I found it fascinating. And I was like, this is totally, this is it. So I kind of was able to dive deeper from there.
I love that. I really am a fan of that. I always wish that we could have more, almost not necessarily like as big of a role as like an internship, but like a taste in these different roles, because I feel like so many therapists and assistants and nurses and social workers and whoever else is listening now, it's like we want these other roles, but we don't really know if we'll like them. And it's one thing to maybe do a survey, fill out a form, and yes, I'm introverted, so this is the role, but we don't know exactly if we're going to enjoy that day to day, because the grass is not always greener on the other side. So I love that. I love that advice that just, take the simplest, smallest chunk of time, see if you'll even like this or other roles, and then start experimenting and taking more and more in-depth courses. About how long was the total training for the Google certificate for the I think that was SQL, you said?
So that the Google certificate was like data analytics in
Okay.
general. So that one kind of covered Excel, SQL. I think it touched on Tableau, and then it also touched on a more like data science language, it's called R. So that one was kind of at the end, and I don't recall it as clearly. But the course, I'm trying to think exactly. It's variable. So, you take as you have as much time as you need to take the course. I think Coursera, you pay like $39 a month, and then you have access to the course for however long you need it. It took me about a month of working through it at a pretty
Right.
quick pace. But it wasn't to the point where I was spending my entire weekend, just
Awesome.
working on these courses.
Awesome. That's and it's so reasonable, like 30, $40, take this course. You can take your time. I know I've seen Coursera before, and that's nice. It's like they give you sort of an estimated time frame when you go to sign up these courses.
Mhm.
And but you can take it faster, slower as you want. So that is great advice. Okay, so we touched a little bit upon what is the actual role, some things needed in order to get that role. Now let's talk about sort of the application and the interview process. How nerve-wracking was it, and how did you really prove yourself? Because I mean, you can talk the language now, but I'm sure when you were first applying, maybe you weren't as solid with the language. How did you go about that?
Mhm. So, kind of taking a little bit of a step back here, my very first data job was at a health insurance company. So, I got that, and I was only there for a short period of time, which I can kind of touch on later. But I got that role back in August of last year. And so, kind of the things that we really talk about as somebody trying to get into data analytics is it's really important to be able to kind of show your skills as well as like explain them. And so that means on your resume making it as number focused and as metric focused as possible. Not just saying I saw X amount of patients per day, but kind of saying, I saw this many patients with this amount of progress, or this percentage of improvement. Really trying to like daylize, that's not a word, but really trying to like explain those numbers and show that you have that skill. So that was a big one for me. And then another big thing that we talk about is portfolio projects. And so basically what that looks like is you would take a data set and you kind of run through a project from beginning to end. So you think about, what questions do I want to answer on this data set? What tools am I going to use? You kind of walk through like your whole process, ending in a data visualization of some sort, and then you have that available. So typically I also recommend like linking your your portfolio on your resume, so that then people can kind of they can see your skills. So when you're not just saying, hey, I have these skills, you're saying, here, let me show you exactly what I can do.
Awesome. I agree with that. I think you've got to really have it be very concrete and really display. Like, you can't just be like, I worked hard. No, like, how did you work hard? Like, what did you demonstrate? The more when everyone listening is about to write their resume, I want you to think these are the day-to-day skills, but go to the job post. And I'm sure Lauren did this and she's a pro. But you're going to go to the job post and use that language too. You can see how Lauren's talking about data visualization and business intelligence. If you just submit your OT or your PT or your SLP or your assistant resume without those keywords, it's not going to translate into a career option for you. You need to demonstrate that you at least have some attempt at that knowledge. And maybe it's just a simple Coursera course, but in addition to having really showing metrics like Lauren's talking about, really use the language in the job post. Because I know many times we're sort of at a loss with, well, how do I explain my role? They are giving you the guide. Now, some job posts are just horrendous and there's like no information on them, but take that with a grain of salt. But hopefully that helps as well as one little tip.
Yeah, I would kind of add to that as well. I tended to kind of alter my resume a little bit for each job. So if they were focused, if the job post was focusing on something really specific, I would make sure I was including that specific thing within my resume. And the other thing that I would really take advantage of, especially as career shifters, is cover letters. That was a
Yes.
really, really great way to kind of be like, yes, this background looks nothing like, what you might expect of somebody who could be really good in this role, but let me tell you exactly how.
Yes.
And that was
Yes.
one thing that I heavily used when I was applying for my first jobs.
Exactly. And I know everyone, like I've heard from some recruiters that they don't use them that much, but I really think it is worth the effort to at least try. I think we can think of it like I'm going to court. If I go to court and just like hand my papers, but I don't say anything, there's a reason why they have you go on stand and explain things. It's to really advocate for yourself. And that cover letter is the moment, it is your one chance for you to further advocate for yourself. So tell a story and explain not just what you do, but why you want this role. I think that's one thing that's also often missing is they want to see passion for this role, not just I'm burnt out, I want any other remote career I can get my hands onto that pays me a similar salary. It's I have passion for this. Like I'm nerding out on this. Um, and then the steps that you've taken to get there, and then how does your current experience translate? And I think those three things are like three cornerstones to your cover letter. Like it. So let's back up, because I want about like how you even got into that first data role, because without any experience, it is always hard to get into there. So can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, definitely. And to be a little bit transparent, I sometimes chalk some of this up to luck. And I think that often is kind of the way it goes. I was in the right time at the right place. Nope, I was at the right place at the right time.
Or you
So
saw exactly, or someone on LinkedIn, luckily friend of a friend, like exactly got
yeah,
it. But
yeah,
back up a second. I think of luck, and this is an interesting thing I heard once, is that it's not luck, it's fortune. And I heard this on a podcast and I was like, take this home. Fortune is you continuing to put yourself out there. And so yes, luckily someone maybe saw you or connected or took a leap of faith on you, but you put yourself out there and you did the right things to put you in that position. So it's fortune, not luck.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think I actually just recently wrote a post on LinkedIn about how, luck is not just this thing happened to me. It's, I had this opportunity, but I also put in a lot of hard work to get to that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I don't want to like downplay the fact, but I also like I did have a somewhat of a quick job search, which is, depending on the field and the industry, it's maybe not always the norm. So I kind of just like I like to kind of put that out front. But yeah, I definitely applied to a ton of jobs. I was focused on two particular industries. So I was an occupational therapist for 8 years, but for the last 5 years of my career, I was working in a school. And so I really focused on the healthcare industry and in the education industry, because I kind of felt like in addition to these data skills, I can kind of, say, I do have a background in these two areas as well. So, let me support myself and kind of give myself a leg up there.
Yes, yes, I'm a fan of that 100%. That's what I say 100%. Keep going.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah. And I definitely like, I knew, especially like the healthcare industry, I knew that I wasn't going to want to stay in that forever, but like it's a great stepping stone. And it was a really good like way for me to kind of get my foot out of OT and into the next career. So I applied for a lot of jobs in those two industries. And I had, I think I had two interviews, two companies that kind of reached out to me and said that they would like to kind of get me to the interview process. And then with the one that I finally accepted, it was, 4 30-minute interviews with a manager, a couple people on the team. And a lot of that was like behavioral questions that I think that we all are able and capable of answering. A lot of it, like I was able to use a lot of my OT background for answering those questions. How have you handled a difficult time in the past? What is a time that you had a disagreement with a coworker and how did you work through it? Like those kinds of questions that I'm sure we've all experienced. And then there's a technical interview a lot of the time. And so, it typically looks like you're either given some kind of take-home assessment where they say, here's this data set and we want you to do X, Y, and Z with it. Or certain times my personal technical interview was like a live coding. So I was asked to do some stuff in SQL and kind of like how I would write those SQL queries. So like how I would look at the database and get the information that they were asking for. And I did actually ask the manager before I left that job, why did you take a chance on me? Why did you hire me? And he said, honestly, it came down to the interview skills.
Yeah.
He said, I was, not to toot my own horn, but he said I was personable and he felt like it was a good fit. And And the other thing that I think was really important for me was that I found a company that was really interested in not only people who had the skills, but people who seemed teachable. That was a huge part. So even if you didn't necessarily have, that expertise or that mastery in these technical tools, if you seemed like you would be teachable and you were able to pick things up quickly, they were willing to take a chance on that. And that was a huge, benefit for me.
Yes, 100%. I agree with everything that you're saying, and this is one thing I try to reiterate to people too, is that in the interview, it's not just about the answers; it's about how you answer them.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm like, oh, I want to do data analytics because this, or I love data analytics, and you're just really more passionate and inspired, that translates so differently. And so it's not just about how you answer the question. It's not just about the actual words that you're saying, but it's the tone of voice. It's your eye contact. It's the passion that you exude. It goes back to like what we were saying about the resume and the cover letter. You want to show them in the interview that you are passionate about their company, that you're passionate about that role, the steps that you're taking to try to prepare yourself for that role, and then how you already are prepared for that role. And I think way too many times we already focus on how we're already prepared, but we want to think about those other things, because like we said, they can teach you data visualization and data analytics, but they can't teach you teamwork, compassion, communication. Those things, those are just things that we are inherently given. And one of the best ways, if you're listening, I think, is just practice. Hop on Zoom, or hop on, just your phone and just, selfie yourself and just practice these answers, and show it to your family and say, how do I sound? And what is what I'm saying sounding, interesting enough for you to want to hire me? So really practice and get that feedback and watch yourself. Don't just, I think that's the most important thing, is also watch yourself and listen to yourself. 100%.
Yeah,
and I hear that on recruiters from the other careers that we talk about, like customer success or customer experience, recruiting, utilization review, in all these roles. Even though they're wanting specific licenses or specific certifications or specific knowledge, moreover, they're telling me, we want communication skills, we want problem solving skills, we want professionalism, we want people that can get along with us.
Yeah. I think like it's really important to be a good culture fit,
Yes.
in addition to those skills. And I think a lot of the time, like you said, it's more important sometimes to like, it's so much harder to teach communication and, creativity and collaboration. And that is something that, especially, I speak purely from an OT background, but like, those regardless, prior to this, those were 3 things on my resume that I really heavily focused on, because they were 3 things that I really heavily did. And so, being able to have that background was really, really helpful too.
Exactly. I think people take it for granted, all the amazing skills that we've learned as therapists and assistants and healthcare professionals in general, is that those are the things that we rock at. And we're so adaptable. We're so hardworking. We have all these amazing skills that can translate into lots of fields. Let's go into now, because I'm sure everyone's like, okay, we're bored now, Emma. Let's go into a day in the life, because hopefully we've inspired people. We've shown them that this is a possibility with hard work and perseverance and preparation. Now tell me a little bit about sort of like your work day, and a little bit more into sort of day in the life of Lauren at Maven.
Totally. So day in the life really depends on what day of the week it is. We have because we are a team of a lot of creative people, and a lot of what Maven does is produce courses so that other people can learn data analytics.
Great.
Yeah. So we have a lot of our team members are recording courses, and they have to be really deep in that zone. And I say that because there are certain days of our week where we are allowed to have meetings, and there are certain days of our week where we do not have meetings at all. It is like, you may not schedule for this day or this time. So a Wednesday looks very, very different from a Tuesday, for instance. students.
Gotcha.
But depending on like my schedule that day, I often, part of my duties is I help kind of present our platform to companies who are looking to teach their employees data analytics. And so I'll kind of meet with people from those companies. I'll run them through our platform, kind of what it looks like. That is pretty typical for me. We often will have like team meetings where we talk about, what does I'm trying to even think of like some of the team meetings that we've had recently.
Like maybe some problems with different companies that are interested, like how could you improve that?
Yeah, I
Something
mean,
like that.
certain definitely like that. We talk about like sales and marketing and all of that fun stuff, and I'm involved in those meetings. And then I will be working either on part of what I do is also content creation for the company. So I'll be working on a blog piece this week, or I'll be doing some stuff in SQL. So if somebody asks me, hey, can you pull a list of students who have ever taken this particular course, I'm able to go into our databases and pull that list of students and provide that. So my days are pretty varied. And there are some days where I'm like working on one thing all day. And then there are days where I'm working on, 7 things. So it's a little bit tough for me to kind of like, and I feel like that's always the answer. Because when I was looking at data, I was like, what does a person in data do? What does their day look like? And being in this role has kind of made me be like, I can give you a brief kind of rough overview, but every day is different. And that's part of what I really like about my job.
Well, and that's a startup too, or I don't want to call Maven a startup, but that is a newer tech company. You're often wearing a lot of hats, which is really neat about when you get into a lot of tech companies. I think you're able to really taste the waters of a lot of different career tracks
Mm-hmm.
without having to be just pigeonholed into one, because they need you to wear many hats. So it's pretty neat that way. Now I know about health informatics. And the more I was talking to you, the more I was like, how is this? And I'm not sure if you could answer this, but it seems like this is very similar to health informatics. Do you know how they are different?
I honestly don't know a ton about health informatics, so I don't feel like I can really talk about it like on a deep enough level to explain like the differences. I'm sure there are lots of similarities though from the little I understand.
Yeah. So everyone out there, I was having this epiphany is we have a lot of people interested in health informatics, but oftentimes you actually need to have a master's or at least a certificate, and that takes a lot of time and it's a lot more expensive than taking one or two courses on Coursera. So perhaps I would say for those people interested in that track, this could be another alternative too,
Mhm.
because it sounds like it's very similar. Can you talk a little bit about some of the, um, is this a fully remote role?
Yep. So our company
Okay.
is fully remote. We meet 1 or 2 times a year in certain locations and kind of have like a company summit. I was lucky enough to that was my second week on the job. I was able to go to the company summit. But yeah, everybody's remote. So, we've got people in Boston and I'm in Philly, people in Dallas, across, in Germany. So that's one of the big pros for me about this job.
That's really cool. All over the
Mhm.
country. That's super neat.
Yes. Yeah.
What are some other things that you like about this role?
So I'm like a little bit hard pressed to find things I don't like about this role, to be totally honest.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really the company is super supportive. It's a small group of people, so it's really nice because I know every single one of my coworkers, and it's nice that we have flexibility. So most noons during the work week, I am out with my dogs. I'm taking them for a walk, and then again at 4:15, I get to take them out. Like it's very much, as long as you're getting your work done, it's pretty flexible. So that's fantastic for me. The remote part is huge. Having a 7-step commute is typically what I say is like one of my favorite parts of it. Um, but really, I also I like the work I do. I love being able to be creative when I'm writing, blog posts or LinkedIn posts. I really enjoy this it's a really good balance for me. When I was in OT, I was getting really burnt out really quickly because I tend to be kind of introverted and I need a lot of like recovery time from being around people. And so, working with kids every single day for 8 hours a day, I would come home and I was exhausted. And in this role, I have meetings and I, definitely am involved and I talk to people on Slack all day, but like I'm by myself. And those days where we have no meetings, it's like heads down, don't need to worry about anybody else or what they're doing. So that's a huge, like, it fits my personality really well. So I
Awesome.
think that, and then like honestly, I do love the data analytics. If I could like live in SQL, there are certainly days where I just like that's all I do, and that's amazing for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you knew this question was going to come, and I know there's going to be lots of people in the chat. Okay, I'm going to get to the nitty gritty. What does this role pay? So, Lauren, feel free to give us a range or sort of like an estimate, whatever you feel comfortable.
Definitely. So I will say it's very, very, there's a wide range. I'm between like 80 and 100, which is essentially where I was prior to this, although I was a contractor. And so, I'm a full-time employee now, which has its own benefits. But there are roles that pay, I would say, like expecting, especially entry level, expecting anything over 100 is not going to happen. I think you can get there very quickly, which is another huge positive. I think that there's a lot of growth in the data analytics field, but like I've seen I've seen ranges from 60, 65 all the way up to that higher end.
Got you. Awesome. That's perfect. And to know that there's full-time, often salaried roles with benefits is definitely awesome out there. Do you know we have a lot of people interested in part-time roles too, and obviously it can really vary. There's probably a million companies out there that need data analysts, and so you're going to find some full-time and maybe some part-time. But have you ever seen any part-time?
I think I don't think I've come across any part-time, but I also will say like I was specifically looking for full-time roles. I know that there are, like, if you're interested in kind of doing the like entrepreneur route, you could get on Fiverr, and I think that there are opportunities there. But for the most part, what I was seeing was full-time roles.
Awesome. And that's what we see too, but don't let that get you down. For those of you that are looking for part-time, I would still definitely search, because I will say I see part-time roles for everything. I see contract roles for everything. It just sometimes has to be the right time and the right place. So set those job alerts, and then if that's what you really want. Okay, let's see. Let's go into, and I feel like we're starting to shape the right personality for this role,
Mhm.
but who would be the best fit for this type of role?
So I think if I'm going to focus like on the data analytics side of things, especially because that was originally what I was getting into, I would say like somebody who is creative, collaborative, communicative. Those are like three big ones. I think somebody who's really able to like kind of, a lot of time you'll go to stakeholders and they'll ask you for a certain data pull, and they'll want certain information, and it's the kind of person who's able to ask, okay, well, why do you need this? What are you actually trying to get out of this? So somebody who's like inquisitive and can kind of like problem solve through those things is really a good fit for this. um, I I feel like data analytics often has that like stereotype of, somebody alone all day, no talking to anybody. And that is about as far from the truth as I can find. So, somebody who like doesn't mind having interactions with people, which I assume a lot of, alternative, healthcare people are kind of okay with being around others and talking to others. But I think those are like the really big things. And, to some extent, you need that like technical side of things. You need to be able to at least pick up on some of those technical things. But I would definitely say kind of like focus on those interpersonal and soft skills and see if it seems like a good fit for you from there, and then see if that technical side of things fits.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I think we've covered a lot in a short period of time. We are no fluff right here. Um, any other tips, advice, anything else you want to share for people interested in this role?
I really think like I would say LinkedIn is a really, really great place for data. It seems to me like it's a really inclusive community. And if you follow data creators, especially, people are giving out so much information for free. They're talking about resumes, they're talking about cover letters, what skills you need, courses that are free to get those skills. So really think about getting in LinkedIn and finding those creators would be a huge one for me. And yeah, I think kind of just like diving in and trying it out. See if you
Yeah.
find SQL as great as I did, and kind of go from there.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Lauren, for coming on and sharing your story. And we're so proud of you that you took this leap, and you seem to be rocking it. So keep us up to date with how things are going at Maven, and everything else on your journey. And we thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We have an awesome remote careers playlist if you are looking for more remote careers. And don't forget to join us in our Facebook group. The link is down below. Have a good evening.